It's going. Alrighty. Ahem, hem, 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 hem. Welcome back, one and all, ghasts and ghouls, creatures of the night, to the Abhorrent Cinema YouTube channel. Woo! I am Noah Gray.
And I am Lily Rascal.
And our special guest for this installment is an incredibly talented maker of monsters, fabricator of fantastic things, stop motion animator, makeup creator, Demi Kay.
Hi,
Hello,
guys.
Demi. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Just surviving quarantine.
Relatable content. Well, we're glad you're surviving. For all of you watching at home, Demi is a longtime friend of mine. We met in college at Columbia College, Chicago. And I was just telling Lily, because we were comparing notes, I don't actually remember where or how we met.
I actually remember precisely where and how we met.
Please share, because I don't.
So we were in the 916 building, and I don't know if you were working there or if you were just like doing some sort of art project, but I also had white silver hair at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I go into this building and I meet you, and I was like, oh my gosh, this person is basically my twin. And we started talking, and we ended up having more in common than just the way that we looked. And I don't know, we just kind of resonated with each other and have been friends ever since.
We did. Like I said, I don't remember the circumstances, but I remember like when we encountered each other, it was like, ah.
Yeah, it was like a lemon grab moment, like in Adventure Time when there's like...
Exactly that.
It was beautiful.
Exactly that. Demi's kind of a badass, for all of you who don't know. Again, I don't remember all the circumstances because I've done a lot of brain damage to myself, just through various means. But you were taking makeup classes in the theater department initially, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I started off at Columbia doing graphic design, and I wasn't really vibing with it after a certain point because I was already working as a graphic designer. Decided to dabble in different arts, and then I found my way in a makeup class just for fun. I was like, oh, it'll teach me how to do different looks for Halloween. Useful. And then I ended up just falling in love with it. From theater, it went into film, and from film, it went into special effects, and when everything from stage makeup with like bruised palettes and cream makeups to silicones and making fiberglass molds. So
yeah,
I've definitely come a long way since we first met in Columbia.
The photos you sent us are beyond me. Did you work in haunted houses?
I did. I used to work in a couple of the haunts that took place in Rosemont. Yeah, every season for a good 3 years or so that I was in Chicago, I would help out with haunts. And I mean, I kind of grew up in haunts just being from the Midwest in general, coming from like a cornfield town. We always had some fun haunted houses taking place locally, and everyone was just getting on the fun.
What else are you gonna do?
Yeah, it was like there's not much to do in a farm town, but
right.
Get a spooky once a year.
Yeah. So you kind of worked your way into makeup classes in the theater department at Columbia, but then you actually had a hand in like creating courses at Columbia with a faculty member, right?
Yeah, well, it was weird that we had these great opportunities, but we had none of the funding. And bless her heart, my teacher Glenie's hand, she would often pay out of pocket just for us to have materials and for us to have the opportunity to experiment with things that we likely wouldn't try on our own if she wouldn't have done that for us. And by making the student organizations and helping getting the classes started, it offered more opportunities for people to get involved. It's like Columbia was such a big film college too, but then once you found yourself making films, you didn't get the education to bring those films to life through makeup, and you don't really realize how big of a part makeup takes in film until you're actually making a film. So little goes such a far way with makeup, and just a little like purple under the eyes can make you look tired, sick. It could really add a lot of character development to a story just by adding a little touch here and there.
For sure. And then through that endeavor, you started an FX makeup club that it was my absolute privilege to be brought into and work with you on.
Yeah, you were even our model for our promo material.
I was.
I would love to see that. I would love to see Lil.
I'll show you the picture. So this is a story that's new to Lily. One thing we did at the end of our senior year, we did like what was it called? The Columbia like nerd culture gala. It was our college's like companion to C2E2.
Yeah, we did our own little thing.
We did, and then we did our own little thing. We had a special effects makeup panel that we put together, where we had members of our club applying like monster makeups in person in front of an audience. And so we did like a full promo thing for that was like inspired by the Face Off TV.
Yeah, like it's our own little Face Off.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Was so much fun. Do you have a favorite creature that you've created in your oeuvre?
Well, I would definitely say since graduating from Columbia, I went on to cinema makeup school a couple years after, and I would say that my creature that I made during my special effects final while at that school, her name is Theory. She was definitely my favorite creation of like all time.
You don't, and what is so amazing about your work is you can't see where the human starts and the creature begins. Like, it's all creature, it's all imagination. Like, how do you start with your visions?
I grew up loving bugs and animals and just biology in general, and something I've always carried with me with making a creature or doing a makeup is that this animal or this humanoid thing actually has to survive. So you have to take things into consideration when putting different features that are in humans. So, you know, if things have a structure, they have to have muscle behind it. Or if they're plated, they have to have some sort of keratin-like texture to it. Everything has to live and breathe like it would if it were surviving in the wild. And a lot of the times I see artists get really carried away, and they call it like a kitchen sink perspective, where they want to add all of this stuff, but then if you try to imagine this thing living, it's like, is it going to fall over? Is it going to be able to feed itself? Is it going to be able to camouflage? How did it get to the point where it is like a human and prospering in its environment? So you have to just really think about how this thing is going to live and breathe and present itself as a living organism.
That's incredible. And I mean, even like looking at, like Lily said, your makeup, but even seeing your visual art and your sketches, your understanding of anatomy is just insane. If you can walk us through the process that you go through in creating a special makeup and appliance for somebody to bring your vision of like this seamless creature that can walk off the screen into real life. Tell us about that, you know, the process of making a monster.
Oh, well, I think, first of all, I think the model is very important. I think other people would disagree with me. They're like, oh, you can use anybody and do everything. I like to use a lot of intention with my work. And so when I was doing Siri, I actually casted somebody that was really near and dear to me, and somebody whose face that I got to look at and study almost on a daily basis. And just the way that she presented herself, like her natural aura, was something that resonated with my character, and it inspired me. And because normally in the classes we just work with who our classmates are, so who we have immediately available. But I was like, no one will work with this girl that I have in mind. So first things first, model. second things first, once you get the model into the studio, you get the life cast done, which in my case I already had done, but we did perform life casts, which consist of either covering the actor's 3/4 profile bust with either alginate or silicone. We then wrap it over with a shell of plaster bandages. We make a hydrocal positive by kind of like painting in the material. It's like a plaster. Getting this kind of hollow form, letting that set up. Sometimes you insert a bar. Then from your beautiful stone copy that you have in like the next couple of hours, you can begin sculpting on it. You first coat it with a layer of soap so that the clay can eventually delaminate from the stone positive. So you go from positive to sculpture. Once you have the sculpture all fleshed out and pretty, then you have to remove the sculpture from the positive that you sculpted it on. So that's why the soap comes in to help lift it. And then I know it's a complicated process. I'm sorry.
No, this is amazing. I love it.
It's a lot of back and forth between basically sculpting and positives. Essentially, from your base positive, you'll be making other positives. So based on the makeup that you create, you may need to split it up in different areas. For my makeup, it only was split up into 2 sections, which a lot of other professional makeups, they'll split up pieces in multiple areas so that the more you split something up, the better movement you're likely to have. Just because a lot of the more your natural face comes through the makeup, the more it'll read as real. And of course, you have to blend your edges really well too to make that transition very seamless. But for my piece, she had a lot of heavy structure. I was able to get away with just doing 2 pieces. So she was actually split from the mouth and then up here and then down like a puppet. The prosthetic itself was made out of a baked latex foam. Crazy process, baking foam, especially when you're just getting new to making molds and you're experimenting with different thicknesses. Once you get to a certain point of the makeup, it's a lot like baking. So you're just whipping stuff up, pouring it in, squishing it, and baking it. And then by the power of the gods, you will have a presentable prosthetic, or like what we like to call a hero piece. The entire process took about 3 weeks total to just make it, and then a week of prep time with like painting, pre-painting, and then 5 hours to apply. So
I was gonna ask that. So for the painting process, it's not all when it's needing to be done. It's certain parts. So if you have to go back and film something with the same prosthetic, you still have the same paint marks and then you add on to it?
Yeah, or so, I mean, some people, it really depends what you have time for. People will always suggest that you pre-paint because the application process is very long process to begin with. So it's like any time you can save, by all means, do it. But man, yeah, it's so like most people will pre-paint the piece, leave the edges clean because you don't want to muddy up your chances of having a good edge by pre-painting the edge. So yeah, they'll paint everything, leave the edge, apply everything, blend your edges, and then basically paint in what wasn't painted before.
It's a labor of love, truly.
It is. There's so much love, blood, sweat, tears that goes into a special effects makeup project. Realistically speaking, in school, it was like go, go, go. Mm-hmm. In the real world, like I'll watch a makeup come together anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. Like it's a longer amount of time with more people involved, which it's cool that the school kind of throws you into things and you have to play the job of like 9 different people. Mm-hmm. When you're working in the professional world, you're doing one job in a team of people who are also working on that project as well. So things get just streamlined ahead.
So if you were to summarize some advice you have for maybe anybody watching at home who wants to get into film and do makeup, what advice would you give them?
Put yourself out there. Just don't stop putting yourself out there. It's a competitive industry. Also keep learning every chance you get. Never stop learning because everything and everyone is always changing, and you just got to keep up with the pace of things sometimes. And that itself can be challenging sometimes. Seek out mentorship and look for classes, any information online, again, with the Keep Learning. I find that finding mentors in my life definitely got me to where I wanted to be. I would not be where I am today without my mentors.
So on that, who are your inspirations for your art? Because you have a very specific, interesting style, especially with like the insects and the animals you're talking about. Who's your inspirations?
Oh man, I got a lot, but
lay them on us.
Oh man, I would say that Rick Baker is really like, makeup daddy. Mm-hmm. Huge inspiration. Steve Wang is a huge inspiration of mine. Actually, Steve Wang owns Alliance Studios out here in LA, and I remember when I first graduated from Columbia College, I wrote an email to Alliance Studios asking if I could come work there, and I never heard anything back. So I was like, I'm gonna hit him up on Instagram and just like tell him my story, essentially. And I wrote him this like page and a half long Instagram message, and he wrote back to me, and he was like, I'm really inspired by your work ethic and like how much you've done. You're not ready for a job here, unfortunately, but I'm going to give you some advice that someone gave me. And basically it's kind of what I told you, is just be tenacious, keep putting yourself out there. You don't have to be the best, just be the one that wants it the most, and eventually you'll get there. And that always resonated with me, and I haven't worked for Steve yet, but I would like to one day. And it's funny that I know so many like just people that it's a really small industry, so it's like I know so many people who have like worked for Steve in the past, and I still think it's in my foreseeable future for sure. Like I would certainly love to work on a project for Alliance Studios.
That's interesting. What movies or TV shows have inspired your work? Any weird effects in horror movies? I mean, I'm constantly thinking of The Thing, especially with was it The Witcher?
Yeah, I did a Witcher project for Netflix.
Okay.
Wait. Ah!
Yeah. That's what I was talking about earlier, Noah.
Tell us about that. Which creature did you make? How'd that happen?
The Kikamura. It's the very first.
In the water.
Yeah, it comes out of the water. It's a pretty like one and done thing, but nonetheless, Kiki and I, we got real close. Oh man, dude. It was a random project. It's basically Netflix wanted this thing done. They went around a bunch of different people, and they're like, oh, we want this much money, we want this much money. We won the bid. We got the project for the cheapest amount, essentially. But
it don't look cheap.
We had maybe like the whole thing was made in about 3 weeks from start to finish, and which is crazy. Like it was a really fast time crunch, and some of my friends and coworkers, they ended up working like 40 hours a day for like 2 days in a row, like on it. They were just committed to getting the project done, and they were, really happy with the outcome. So
24 hours in a day.
Yeah, 40 hours a day. 40 hours a day.
Is it actually movable? Like
no. So here's the thing. The creature, is made in CGI. Someone digitally made that creature. Probably had a 3D model, rigged it, put it into the show. We, on the other hand, received that 3D model, broke it down, CNC'd the legs. So we had like giant blocks of foam that we essentially had a machine and a computer carve into 2 halves that we fit around a steel beam frame. So it was like putting together a giant puzzle. But then the CNC is only capable of doing like low poly imagery. So we had to do the texture work to actually make it not like a block form. So after the styrofoam was attached to the steel frame, we had to put epoxy on the styrofoam. Then we put another type of epoxy on the styrofoam that was like it works a lot more like a wet clay, but you slap that epoxy on. We're using like grill cleaners and silicone brushes to like rake texture into this thing.
Yeah.
And then we just a lot of painting, and it was a crazy project. Actually, a little TMI, I had some like medical stuff going on where I had like a cyst rupture, and I was working this project like during like agony, and it was like, it's worth it. Kiki is so worth it.
Put a little of yourself into it.
Yeah, and honestly, it was a labor of love. Like, we went to the premiere party, took a bunch of pictures with her, and we got to see I forget the actor's name. We got to see the Witcher, Geralt, interact with Kiki, and like
Henry Cavill.
Like, I was fighting this thing, you know, green screen, not actually fighting her, but now I get to see her in person for the first time, and thank you for bringing her to life into the real world. And it was just like, what?
So the thing he's dragging through the town when he's taking it, is that the thing you made, or did they just use your Oh, okay.
Oh, no. We made the creature after everything was shot. So we're not.
Oh, and then they used it as a reference to put the texture onto the CGI model.
Okay. It wasn't
I
used
see.
in the show. It was used for the premiere, but it was for Netflix. And then
Gotcha. That's so incredible. Ah! Oh my God, Henry Cavill. Ah! I want him to spit on me. Sorry. Anyway. Leather pants. So let's roll it back here.
Yeah, let's roll back.
You said that you had a very sheltered childhood. Do you know, like, what's your earliest thing that you saw? Maybe it's a movie, maybe a TV show, maybe an image that you were like, ooh, horror. Yeah.
Ooh. Carrie has resonated with me spiritually.
Okay.
A lot. And so yeah, I love Carrie. Oh my gosh, Kill Bill. I just watched that again yesterday. That was one of my, it's not so much horror, but
thriller.
I love the story, like a good revenge story. And Uma Thurman has my birthday. So I was like, I feel you, girl. And man, The Thing is my all-time favorite movie. I don't know if you're familiar with The Thing, but
we are familiar.
It's one of my favorite like prosthetic, and like that's basically what I was looking at your stuff. I was just like, especially the Witcher creature, I was like, she must like The Thing. Like, there's nothing like 80s prosthetic horror.
I know, the practical effects with the garbage bags and like the melting.
And then I also know that, I mean, we've gushed over it, our mutual love of Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Mars Attacks, your Mars Attacks makeup is one of my favorite things. In the vein of Tim Burton, stop motion. And you have recently gotten into stop motion animation as well.
I have. More so as a puppet maker, not so much as an animator, but I am learning a lot about animations as I am involved with this project. It's really cool watching them bring everything to life, and it's funny when you're making, you know, your puppet, it's like something that you always imagine, but you don't actually get to see, and it's really cool when you get to see, you know, your little dude actually moving, breathing, living his life on the big screen, and definitely a unique experience aside from makeup.
And the one that you sent us, what is that? Because that looks terrifyingly beautiful.
So there's actually a stop motion that I worked on a few years ago that I think it just came out last year, not 2 years ago, but it's called Toe, and it's a story inspired from scary stories they tell in the dark called The Big Toe. A couple of buddies of mine that I met at Columbia, they needed a puppet maker, and they were interested in getting into animation, and we just clicked really well, and they were patient with me. I was like, I've never made a puppet before, and they're like, oh, well, it's not that different from makeup. I'm like, you're right, like, I can definitely do this. And it ended up being a way bigger success than I had thought. Like, just the love that Workshed Animation put into the project was just unbelievable and beautiful.
Is there somewhere that we can watch that?
Yes, you can actually watch it for free on Amazon Prime.
Oh, great.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. It's like 7 minutes. It took us forever to make, but you know.
You know what? Tim Burton started with Vincent, and that was a very short little stop motion film called Vincent. And
Yeah.
look what things have turned into now. I love stop motion. It's near and dear to my heart. I wish I could do more stop motion or figure it out. I've always wanted to, and puppets for some weird reason have always been. I love puppets. I don't know why.
That's amazing. We're definitely going to have to watch that together, Lily and I. So in the vein of all this horror, I know that you have just the most fascinating mind. So I want to dig in and ask, what scares you? What are you afraid of? And I know some of these answers, but I just want to hear you talk about them.
I think it's like the things that scare me, like as far as like horror and stuff though, don't actually scare me. I'm more like curious, or like like the feeling of having my boundaries provoked by feeling like in an artistic way, to feel uncomfortable or to feel like unexpected or feel a way I would not expect. I really don't like, this is weird because I get a lot of tattoos and piercing. I really don't like needles. And I really don't like stuff with my teeth. There's a really good horror movie called Goodnight Mommy.
Yes.
About two twins, yeah. And they do some things in the movie with teeth. And oh yeah, it's just the noise, and I grind my teeth in my sleep. So like I feel like that's what, like something subconsciously like gets me there. So
I feel like not much inspires like terror or dread in you as much as sometimes maybe discomfort, but you have such an incredible understanding of what is abjectly aggravating and disconcerting to the human mind. I remember the uterus room that I helped you build for the haunted house at Columbia.
Yes. Oh, I think sexuality is really weird. I'm more of like an asexual person myself, though I am cis for the most part, and I have, I'm heterosexual, I have a heterosexual relationship, but I think sex is weird sometimes, and people make it weird. And like, yeah, in my uterus room, I had these giant phallus creatures that would poke through the wall, and you're just like, what the fuck? Oh, sorry.
Oh my God.
We had people like dressed up like, well, I should say you. I was just kind of there to help you. It was your vision. It was your vision. Yeah, you had people like dressed up as like condoms.
My phallus dropped out.
Yeah, like rubber phalluses poking through the walls. We had little like rubber fetuses that you can get from like pro-life websites. Rubber fetuses hanging from, I still have a couple actually. I still have a couple of those.
I do too.
Yeah.
I still give them out to people.
They were like hanging from the ceiling. So as people entered the room, they had to like, you're going through a jungle of fetuses and
squishy floors with the foam bags that we had to like poke holes into because they were bursting and there's just foam everywhere.
Yes.
Oh, there was so much work that went into that room. Oh my gosh. It's a weird vibe. I don't think it's a vibe that's been fully tapped into yet, and I love the idea of exploring the topic more at some point.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of your personal work has an element of body horror to it. Like very like Cronenberg, Clive Barker.
I never talked about like my biggest inspiration ever. I blanked because I was just like, I'm not used to this sort of thing. But Joel Peter Witkin, oh my God. Joel Peter Witkin. Do you remember that at all?
Yes.
He was a huge inspiration, especially for some of my earlier work too. I haven't reflected on that a lot until just now, but he is a cool cat.
Yeah. What's some of his work for people who may not be familiar at home?
Oh, he's a really old photographer from like the 40s or 50s.
Oh, wow.
Really old guy. He works with a lot of like black room stuff, or like developmental photography, or like old school exposure playing. Sorry, I'm lacking the terms.
I know it's like in a dark room.
But
Yeah.
before Photoshop existed, he would layer different things in the dark room to get like different textures and elements into his photography. And he even he worked with a lot of people who were seen to the everyday world as unordinary or not beautiful, and he saw so much beauty, and like the way that he composed his images are just like something that I haven't really seen before in other works.
Well, I'm going to look at it now.
Yeah.
And I love thinking of art way back when.
I remember you showing me that image.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had that book or if it was on like a phone screen, but I remember you showing me introducing him to me in that makeup room that we spent so much time sweating.
Oh my gosh.
Columbia.
I lived in
Yeah.
my dungeon.
So, as I mentioned before, I've got a couple questions prepared that I think that every fan of the horror genre, films specifically, horror films, should be able to answer. And before we start, option E, fill in, well, C, because whatever. Write your own option is, always acceptable. A tie is acceptable. We're loosey-goosey here.
Cool, because I'm really scared I'm going to disappoint you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. And if you have something out of left field, we're so here for it. Are you ready?
I guess I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So, first of all, Freddy versus Jason. They're having a fight. It's at fisticuffs. Who are you rooting for?
We did this low key in makeup school, but I I would say Freddy, only because of the psychological element to it. I don't think you could beat that. I really don't. It's inside of you.
Very you. Okay. Vampires or werewolves?
Oh man, why you do this to me? Both? Underworld? Hybrid?
Ooh, yeah, hybrid.
Yeah. I was like, let's make a hybrid because they got the best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds. I think a lot about how easy it would be if, I forget which character it is, but he becomes a hybrid and he can grow wings and then retract them at will. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Wait.
An antenna shoots out of his back and then it becomes a bat wing. But I always thought that was cool because I always think, and then I don't have to have wings on me as I go about my day. I can just grow them and lose them whenever I want.
That'd be nice.
Love it. All right, so we are making your dream horror film. You are in charge. It's what you want to see. In this horror film, do you want a final girl/final person, or do you want there to be no survivors at the end?
No survivors.
No survivors. All right. Cabin in the woods.
Yep, Cabin in the Woods ideal.
I want the cycle to repeat and then other people to deal with it.
Oh, okay. So
Nobody
this is a
wins.
franchise.
Yeah.
Love that. Hey, longevity. We love to see it. In this movie, is there tons and tons of gore, or are there off-screen kills?
Oh, you put this in here just for me?
No, I'm asking everybody that.
Oh, I was like offspring kills.
Yeah, me too.
Everything I love has offspring kills. Godzilla, Jurassic Park, Alien,
Ooh, sidebar in that vein. Do you have a favorite kill scene in a movie?
Oh man. I really don't. I like things that are different, so as long as something can keep me guessing, I'm all for that. Sometimes I like movies that just play with the death scenes. I'm trying to think of this particular movie. It was on Netflix for a while. It had to do with clowns, or a clown, and a bunch of children. And it was just like really, it was like humor horror. Like they were just like one of the scenes where they like the clown cuts the kid's head open with a can opener and starts scooping his brains out like ice cream. Like I think stuff like that is really fun because it's not real, and you're just like, what can I do with this? Oh, this is an older movie, but Dead Alive. Are you familiar? Yeah,
of course.
That one is so fun. And I'm like cracking up. Like, oh man, it's just a funny movie. Like you're like, this is ridiculous the way all these people are dying. And then they're like, the mom like turns into this big puppet later.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I mean, talk about tons of gore.
The baby, oh my god, the baby.
Zombie baby.
Zombie baby. You know me.
I know you and babies.
Yeah, I have a weird thing with fetuses. I love them.
I wouldn't say weird, but it's definitely a thing. You've got a thing with fetuses. All right, so back to this ideal horror film we're making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep them calm.
Yeah. Do you like more dramatic music stings, or do you want there to be silence?
Silence. Yeah.
Love it.
Contradictory to the humor, but still.
Sure. So in your movie, jump scares, do you think they're scary, or is it a cop-out?
Oh, I love jump scares. And those are the kind of things that make my mom scream at the top of her lungs in the movies, so it's funny.
That is always fun.
It's not real. You're like, oh, that wasn't the real scary thing. Cool.
Right. Lily hates a fake out.
Just a cabinet.
I hate a fake out. I hate when they do like 3 fake outs in a row, and then you're like, well, my adrenaline's gone. So whatever it's going to be, I'm not even going to be scared about it. It depends on how they do it.
Moving on, in the history of cinema, do you have a favorite, there can be a tie, but a favorite movie monster / FX makeup application?
Oh, man. I'm a huge fan of, it's not really makeup, but this is like costume and just monster making in general.
Sure.
Shinichi Wakasa is the creator of some of the earlier Godzilla movies, or not the movies, but the Godzilla suits in those movies. And just like watching just old Japanese filmmaking in general, like I love the idea that there's like just dudes in suits and these, dinosaurs or these monsters, and they're fighting each other. And I was always so inspired to do big creature builds because of Godzilla and the work that Shinichi did on those movies.
Cool. Nice.
As far as makeups go, of course, Werewolf in London, amazing. Just everything in Werewolf in London. This is really dumb. I was like, as far as the beauty makeup goes, I love Padme.
Oh, well, hey. Like in her, like white-faced queen.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. She was a lot of inspiration for, I think, one of our like Spider Geisha makeup that we did when we were at we had some Padme references in there.
I see that, thinking about it, definitely. And then also that airbrush, like full bust thing you did on me with like the laser cutouts.
I totally forgot about that. That's
awesome. I love that. I love looking at that
makeup.
Picture.
Yeah, it looked really good on you.
Thank you.
You gotta think about the model. And I was like, duh. Like.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I can definitely see some Padme references in that, I remember. So, this one's a little polarizing, but my final question is, who is your favorite Dracula?
Oh, man. I don't know. Honestly, I am not too familiar with that many vampire films. I've seen like Van Helsing and Underworld, and I like the romanticism in the older like Dracula movies. Like it's more like over the top, like, oh, I love you.
Awkward stares.
I can't really give you like an actor name or like a specific movie just off the top of my head at this moment. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
I'm the worst.
Patterson, so fine.
No. I work for a movie production company, and I'm literally the worst with actors.
That's okay, because you meet a lot, and then when you meet them, they look very different when you're done with them. Like,
Yeah.
is there anywhere that we can find you? Instagram or a Facebook or a website?
Yeah, you can follow my Instagram at Demi Kay Creations, and also have a website, demikaycreations.com. And really, anywhere you want to find me on the internet, pretty much that handle.
Yeah, look her up because Demi is just one of the most insanely talented and creative people I have ever met in my life. So follow her. Maybe you give us a follow. Maybe you subscribe to this channel. I don't know. I don't know your life. You make your own decisions. Thank you so very much, Demi, for coming on and speaking to us. We had a wonderful time with you. And the next time you see Henry Cavill, please give him my number because I'm
Okay, Noah.
I'm just waiting. With that being said, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Abhorrent Cinema. We love you. We'll see you next time. Until then, happy haunting, everyone. Spooky way.